Cranes can be either a great asset to your job or a major hazard, depending upon how they are used. Many times, a crane can be used to move large objects safer and easier than man lifts or other lifting devices. Two primary types of cranes are overhead and boom, and they can be powered by combustion engines, electrically, or by mechanical levers and weights, along with its designated rigging equipment. Before using a crane at your site, though, consult the manufacturer for the specific procedures and limitations of the heavy equipment. Of course, you should always check your company's rules and procedures before operating any type of equipment. Now let's talk about crane specifications. The type of crane needed for a specific job is determined by several factors. One of these factors may be your environment in which you are working with, like rough terrain, water, high winds, moving loads, and various sizes of loads. The manufacturer or trained engineer should help you in deciding what type of crane is best suited for your operation. Let's address operator qualifications of a crane. The operator must be qualified to perform the specific mechanics of the crane being operated. However, qualification does not stop here. Knowledge gained from experience and formal training must be present to operate a crane. Forms of crane training may be obtained from crane manufacturers, in-house company programs, on-the-job supervised programs, and through professional crane operation training sessions. Many jurisdictions require formal certification for qualified crane operators. Local, state, and federal regulations should be referred to when determining further qualifications. These regulations may include the requirement for the level of training and experience, practical operating examinations, individual knowledge of equipment, physical requirements for eyesight, hearing, and other physical factors having an effect on crane operation and specific industry regulations. Now let's talk about some other safety features you need to be aware of when operating a crane. Beyond basic expertise of cranes and knowledge of the specific crane you are working with, there are some other important aspects to be aware of. Rigging practices and equipment, communication signals, environmental conditions, and maintenance practices are just a few. Know your equipment. Some of the general concerns you should have about your job as a crane operator should be, what is the load rating? Is this an overhead crane? Are the load capacities labeled on the main beam? Do the specifications match the other components of the crane, such as the traveling block? If you don't know, ask. Operate within the designated workloads, boom angles, and attached rigging equipment limits. Never alter a piece of equipment design or structure without proper engineering and manufacturer's specifications. Before you start your work, inspect the equipment for maintenance to be performed, damaged or loose parts, frayed cables, electrical, hydraulic, or mechanical equipment condition. If you are not the qualified and designated person to do the maintenance, contact the person who is or notify your supervisor. Equipment of the crane is very important. Remember, a chain is only as strong as its weakest link. The weak link may be the equipment used in the rigging process. This may include cable or chain slings, package or container load attachment points, the rigging practices of a rigging crew, or any other operation done in conjunction with your crane. You should always make it your responsibility to be aware of all operations surrounding the crane you are operating. If you don't feel comfortable with a certain operation, stop. Check the work out. If the problem cannot be resolved, let your supervisor or a person with the correct expertise identify the remedy. Next on our crane safety checklist are pre-lift checks. The crane operator is generally responsible for a pre-lift check. This should include a visual inspection of all crane and loading equipment, including a performance check. When repetitive jobs are performed, a periodic check schedule should be determined to fit your equipment and operation. A check should also be made to determine if the proper qualifications are present for the rigging crew or other personnel associated with a lifting operation. Let's talk about rigging. Load limits should be determined for all rigging equipment. These limits should be identified for each type of device used. All equipment should meet your company and manufacturer specifications for the load being lifted. General guidelines for the sling maintenance should include, but are not limited to, the following. 1. Wire rope clips should be installed. U-bolts should have the U on the short or dead end of the rope. All bolts should be periodically checked for tightness. 2, all wire ropes, slings, and chains should be lubricated per manufacturer's specification. 3, slings, wire ropes, and chains should be checked for excessive wear, damage, broken wires, bending, or kinking. 4, shackles should be used when attaching looped wire slings where attachment points have rough-cut edges or uneven surfaces. Slings and wire ropes should be protected when fastened or drawn over sharp or rough edges or surfaces. 5, use only a cable or chain that is designed and specified by the manufacturer and or through sound engineering practices. 6, wire ropes with knots or kinks should not be used. 7, hook openings should be turned outward from the load for hook slings. 8, chains should be inspected for interlink wear at bearing surfaces, cracked and bent links, and signs of overloading. 9, the load should be checked for stability and structural integrity prior to rigging. And finally, 10, your list should contain procedures for checking specific factors depending on your operation. Certain operations, such as exposure to excessive heat or weld splatter, may cause other potential damage to your rigging equipment. The rigging equipment manufacturer should supply you with the specifics on maintenance and procedures for your individual operation. Once the crane has been checked according to the manufacturer's guidelines, begin checking the surrounding environment for special conditions that may affect the operation. Here are a few items to consider. Weather conditions like wind, rain, and lightning. The surrounding area like clearance in all travel and operation paths. Also check for electrical lines, which could cause electrocution, property damage, or fire. Restrictions should be made clear and barriers installed, like beacon lights, flags, or other markings to prevent others from entering the operating zone of the crane. Flag or signal personnel is needed in areas where a crane operator does not have clear vision of all travel areas that aren't restricted to outside factors. Load movement. A strict practice should be established that prohibits anyone from entering an area under a load. Barriers may need to be set up, tag lines should be used when appropriate, and personnel should be restricted from this area. Proper rigging practices also play an important role in this operation. For example, a hook positioned directly over the load can help to keep the load from experiencing a side thrust that causes the load to swing. Communication must be established between the crane operator and the rigging crew, as well as other personnel involved in directing a load to a destination. One common practice of communication is the use of hand signals. Personnel should make certain that the hand signals being used are understood between the crane operator and the person giving the directions. One primary signal person should be designated and identified to all personnel on site. A light on the crane can be used to signal workers around the crane that an operation is in progress. Safety devices are another means of communication. Whether a moving crane has backup alarms, PA systems, lights, or radios, you must use them properly to be effective safety devices. Whatever you are picking up, know your load. Some cargo boxes or containers may require an upright orientation so that contents do not spill or shift. This may include liquids or loose materials. Be alert for hazardous labels on cargo-type material. In the case of chemicals or a hazardous substance, always find out what safety precautions are prescribed. Obtain material safety data sheets if they are available. A cargo manifest may also be present and should describe the material. If you do not know the hazard, consult your supervisor. If a weight is not known or cannot be reasonably estimated, make further inquiries until a weight can be determined prior to lifting a load that may reach the capacity of the equipment being used. In review, crane safety is multifaceted. A safe crane operation is dependent on the crane, rigging equipment, and personnel operating or working around the equipment. More than common sense is needed to properly and safely operate a crane. Each crane and each piece of lifting equipment has its own special characteristics. Many regulations and industry guidelines and specifications have been written to deal with crane safety, like OSHA's 29 CFR 1910.179, 180, and 181. don't forget one of the most important rules of operating cranes. If you don't know, ask.
We've shown a variety of workplaces and situations this month. We'd like to remind you that each workplace is different. Be sure to wear the personal protective equipment that's right for your job. For more information about Safety Watch, give us a call at 800-440-0377. From all of us here at Safety Watch, work smart, stay safe, and thank you for watching.